If you are ready to write your literature review in 3 days or less, then you should join me for the Write Your Literature Review Retreat happening in Atlanta, Georgia, October 11th through the 13th. You will leave this 3-day experience with a full draft of your literature review. So tonight I am just here to answer any questions that people have either about the retreat or about their literature review. I'm just going to put this comment here as people come on. Hello, as you come in, so hi, how is it like to be you today? I'm just putting in a comment because I can't do two things at once. Yes, so if you have any questions about your literature review, please let me know. I am here to answer any questions. I have helped over 300 students write their literature reviews, and I know I can help you too, so let me know. What is your question or what is your biggest challenge in writing your literature review? I was doing this in the stories and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna take y'all with me. I did not do that because I was trying to focus on the road. So now that I've made it to Nashville, I am here to help y'all. So let me know your challenges or your questions around literature reviews. And if you want to join me in Atlanta next month for the Write Your Literature Review Retreat, all you need to do is comment lit and you will get sent the link. So any questions, any challenges, like what would you say is your biggest challenge in writing your literature review? For those of you who are in the middle of writing it, maybe you wrote yours already and you want to help out a person, because sometimes people get so overwhelmed and so bogged down in the literature review they don't even know how to ask a question. So do you have any questions about literature reviews? The one that I left off on in stories is that people will tell me either they have so much literature to get through, they don't know how to sort it or organize it, or they can't find any literature around their topic. If you can relate, let me know. But what are your questions or your challenges with literature reviews? And here's what I'm going to tell y'all, okay? We're going to start this conversation off because, listen, I've been driving all day and I don't have much of a filter. I'm going to tell you, no matter what the question is, no matter what you think your biggest challenge is, it's going to come down to this one simple question. Do you trust yourself? Do you trust the words that you are putting on the page? So as you're coming in, let me know your question or your challenge. Do you trust yourself? Is something I want you to answer. When you are writing words on a page, whether it's for your literature review, for any manuscript, for the rest of the dissertation, do you trust that when you show this to your chair or whomever, that they're going to know that you know what you're talking about? Because I'm going to tell you, I'm going to answer everybody's questions, but it's all going to come down to that there's some version of you do not trust the words that you're putting on the page. And that could be because of feedback that you've gotten in the past. That could be because you're just real nervous about this topic. That could be because a lot of dope scholars have written about this topic and you're thinking like, who am I to write about this? And so we're going to get into that, but I just want to say that. So Heather's Heart, you're saying you can't find literature on a topic. If you are willing, can you tell me a little bit more about your topic and I can speak more clearly to that? But to say that and to talk about it in general, here's what I have found when people are having a challenging time finding literature about their topic. It usually means like they're doing something that either the field hasn't really covered that much. They're using a methodology or methods that, let's say, for instance, like I do a lot of research around campus-based sexual assault. Most of that research is quantitative. There's more qualitative and mixed methods happening, but most of it is quantitative. And so one of my biggest frustrations in the past used to be like, hello, where are the qual people? Because numbers and data of the population is great, but we need to go deep and the people ain't going deep. So maybe that is the thing. What I will say is, one, there is literature, right? Because people have been doing research for so many decades that I'm willing to bet that we can find literature. But two, this usually gives me an indicator that I want to take a step back to say, now everybody has different definitions of literature reviews. The way that I define a literature review is you have a problem that you are exploring, you have identified a purpose to your research, and you know what type of data you need and who is like the keeper of that data. When you are writing a literature review, the literature review is for all intents and purposes, is to justify why you are studying that particular problem, purpose, and trying to answer those particular research questions. So the literature review isn't about telling us everything that's ever been written about your topic. It is that you have a particular inkling or a theory or a hypothesis about this problem, this purpose, these questions, or these research aims, and you're going to use the literature to build the case. So if I give you a pop culture example, if I was to say, who won the beef between Drake and Kendrick, you would be able to tell me an answer. Right now, we all listen to the same songs in this beef. We all have a base knowledge of Kendrick Lamar and Drake, right? But all of us could have 50 different answers of how we answer who won the beef. Think about your literature review in the same way. There are 50 million ways to come up with a justification of your research, but in the same way that you would pull certain elements from Drake and from Kendrick, you're doing that with the literature. So if you can't find literature around the particular topic, I want you to take a broader view of it and say, if there was someone completely brand new to this topic, they have never heard of the topic, they have never heard of your field, they've never heard of your program, what are the basic things that they would need to know in order to even understand the problem that you are addressing? And I strongly encourage you to just brain dump on that. What is something that if somebody was completely brand new, what would they need to know about your topic? Because as you brain dump about that, you're going to bring up some words that need some defining. You're going to bring up some key theories, most likely. You're going to bring up, listen, I'm not your regular professor. I'm nobody's professor, first of all. So I'm going to say this question and I don't mean no harm by it. But a favorite prompt that I have, and Heather's Heart, if you are still here with me, a prompt that I love to ask people: what is the oldest white guy in your field? I'm talking about old, crusty white guy, he was here when the field was founded. What would he say is the most important literature to include in your literature review? That is usually, if you do what is somebody who needs to know who's brand new, and what would the old crusty white guy say? If you could start there and you could start writing about that, it is going to point you in the direction of, okay, here's some baseline literature I need to include. Now, the other pieces of your topic, and it is helpful if you give me an example and I can go off of that, and maybe I must have missed it because I probably should put on my glasses. The other pieces is then building around your topic. So I haven't seen an answer. And for those of you who are coming in, hello, happy Sunday. Let me know your biggest challenge to writing a literature review, or let me know any questions that you have. So if you are someone who cannot find literature on the topic, I first want you to start there of what does someone need to know if they're brand new, and what would the old crusty white guy say in your field about what literature must be included? That is going to give you some basis. The next thing is, why does your study need to happen? Because I think about a literature review as justifying your study. So how do you answer that question? Why does it need to happen? Why would it need to happen? Who cares? What would happen if this research never was done? Would the field go on? Would people even notice it's a problem? Because these are all keys. Because a lot of you are doing research on marginalized populations. It's not so much that the topic has never been studied. It could be that the topic hasn't been studied with this particular group in this particular way. It's usually what I come across when I'm helping students. So with that being said, you need to explain, who are these people? Why haven't they been studied before? Why haven't these particular methods been used before? And what are the benefits of including these people and these methods into the literature? Some of y'all are going to have a hard time with this, right? And I'm not, okay, let me be clear. I am giving you game on how the system works. I'm not telling you is right or wrong. I'm just going to give you how the system works. Most of you have to make clear, why are you studying these particular people in this particular topic? So especially for those of you, for me and my dissertation was focused on Black women. I had to answer the question over and over, well, why should we care about Black women? Why shouldn't we care about all doc students? And I get that on the surface, that's a very offensive question. On the surface, it's like, are you asking me to justify my identity, or you're trying to tell me to like justify like my dignity, my worth as a human? Y'all, most people, it ain't that deep, okay? Because they don't have the critical thinking skills to be that deep with you, all right? So I get that it's offensive, but I also need you to know your audience. And listen, it's Sunday. I'm not drinking no more, but listen, this mineral water might have something in it. I'm gonna tell you the truth. People ain't that smart and they ain't that deep. So you might be getting upset with them, but they don't even know what you're talking about. They are legitimately asking, well, why does it matter? It reminds me of when I was working at the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. I was doing part of my job as a director of a women's resource center was to help with sexual assault reporting and making sure that folks got the resources that they need after they report it. And I was in the meeting and I was like, you know what's funny here? So we're in the city of Milwaukee, yet most of these services, most of the data we're looking at ain't got nothing to do with no students of color. Like, they don't make no sense. And somebody dead ass looked at me and said, well, that's just such a small percentage of the population. We got to be more smart with the resources that we're using. People are thinking about that when it comes to your study. Like, I hope you heard what I said. They were like, that's such a small percentage of the population. We have to be more smart with the resources that we're using. And I'm like, but we are in a school, in a city, that while there might be a small percentage of this school, they represent majority of the city. They're like, yeah. So for me, right, I can then interpret that as, oh, so you're privileging, which is what I said to the person, you're privileging quantitative research over all other forms of research. And you're saying that if the numbers are not big enough, then those students don't matter when those students are more affected by sexual assault. Because according to the research I got that I could pull up for you right here, they're more impacted. So you're saying we're not going to follow that research? You're only going to privilege certain research? Yes. People are doing that. Your committee, your chair, anybody who's going to pick up your dissertation, all have an idea of what research matters the most. So this goes back to number one, that you have to answer the questions that you think are basic. But number two, all literature won't be included in your literature review. Everyone who, listen to me, every person who writes a literature review is selective about what literature they include. So let's just go ahead and make peace with, we're not including every piece of literature. If you need me to say this in a different way, literature reviews are very political. It matters who you cite in your literature review. Who you cite, what literature you include, tells me a lot about you, your politics, and your views of research. That is also communicated to your chair and your committee. But I'm going down a deep rabbit hole, so let me just see what Heather said. My topic is conversations Black parents have with their children around mental health. So mental health socialization. Any particular subset of mental health. So tell me more about the mental health. And I know this is a little bit hard. And if you want to come up, if you're comfortable going live, we can go live. If not, I know it's a little bit challenging with typing and Instagram, but the more granular you can get with your topic, the more I'm able to help you. But so far, so I need to know a little bit more about what you mean by mental health. But so far we have Black parents and we have children around mental health. So we already know in your literature review, you need to talk about the experiences of Black parents with children who have been, and this is something you need to indicate, have they been formally diagnosed, or does it matter if they've been formally diagnosed? I'm going to assume, for the sake of this example, that you mean Black parents who have children who've been formally diagnosed, and then you let me know with which any particular diagnosis. So first, we need to know who are Black parents with children who have been diagnosed with XYZ. What are their experiences? Based on the literature, what are some common things that we know about their experiences? Now, I don't know what program you're in. I don't know what field you're in, but there is research, right? You can go into counseling, other helping professions, but you want to talk about that. To make this even more narrow, does it matter the type of Black parents? Does it matter about where the location of these parents doesn't matter about their socioeconomic status, doesn't matter about their education level, doesn't matter if they too have been diagnosed, doesn't matter if they have any other experience in terms of siblings or parents or family. Why? Because that's going to lead us to different areas of the literature. I'm so glad that you have this as an example. So for everyone, when you're thinking about your topic, the more detailed you can be in your topic, the more uncomfortable you're going to feel, one, but I'll tell you why you feel uncomfortable. But the more detailed you can get, the better someone will be able to assist you in finding the literature. So I'm going to go down. Okay. Help seeking patterns of older African American men. Right. So again, doesn't matter the location, doesn't matter. With this, I feel like religion would be a big thing. Doesn't matter about religion. Doesn't matter about education level. Right. Because this is all about their awareness and what we would go look in terms of the literature. Now, help seeking patterns. In the literature review, we first need to know, what do you mean by help seeking? So your literature, I would argue, needs to start with, what does help seeking mean? Who are they? Doesn't matter who they're seeking help from. So we just first need to know what that means in general. Then what do we know currently about African American men, or maybe African Americans, period, in the help seeking patterns? And then what do we know about men in particular? And then what do we know about older men? For a lot of you, this is going to feel like, well, why do I have to talk about all of that? It's because you are writing a literature review in your entire dissertation for a person who has never heard of your topic, who has never heard of your field. Many of you, I'm going to go back to something I was saying earlier, you don't trust yourself to write because as you are typing your literature review, you're constantly thinking about, what is my chair going to say? What is my committee going to say? Are they going to know that I didn't get this right? What if I get the literature wrong? And you're completely forgetting about the reader. There is a reader on the other side. Like when people go to look up articles or dissertations, it's because they have a problem or they have a question. And so when they go to find your dissertation and you're so busy talking at a high level because you were thinking about your chair and your committee and whatever other expert, you left out the majority of readers. Think about other articles or manuscripts or dissertations you've read trying to write your own literature review. How frustrated you have been reading some of those because you're like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't know. And it's because they too most likely were writing for their committee and other experts instead of writing for the reader. Most of you, the reason why you're getting feedback of this is unclear, I don't understand what you're saying, you need to reorganize this, is because you're trying to prove that you did the reading, you're trying to prove that you know all of this when you need to write in a very clear and simple matter. Like you get fancy later, but you first need to be clear. Then you need to write for a person who has never heard of your topic. So me using this example is saying, yes, we need to know what help seeking means. And then we need to know, what do African Americans, what does the literature have to say about African Americans seeking help? And then what does it have to say about African American men? And then we get to older African American men, because if there's not much literature around older African American men, now we got the justification that we need of why your study matters, right? Because if you can talk about in general African Americans seeking help, and you can talk about men to a certain extent, but you are having a hard time finding peer-reviewed literature of older African American men and their help seeking patterns, you can say, well, there's a gap in the literature. That is how you demonstrate that there's a gap that exists. You have to take us wide and then you bring us narrow. So let me see if Heather responded, because that's why I was just trying to talk to see. And let me know if you're coming in, your questions or your biggest challenges with the literature. Okay, I had a white professor ask me that and it pissed me off. Listen, you're going to be pissed a lot in this process. Because here's the other thing, y'all. Most of you are giving your committee, your chairs way, way too much credit. Oh, you're giving these people so much credit. You think they're smarter than what they are. Some of you gonna log off because you're not gonna believe me. A lot of you don't realize that you're actually smarter than your committee. And what I mean by smarter than your committee is that you are fresher, like you have a fresher perspective of what the current literature has to say. Because you are in student mode, have been reading probably more about this particular topic than your committee. Even the most person who you consider an expert is most likely not in the new literature as you are. Why? Because they already got their fame, and they already got their lane and where they stay in. And most people, especially faculty, if they find something that works, they stay there. So you are making a lot of assumptions about what they know and what they're reading. And most of these people are just like you, stressed, burnt out, and over this shit. And so they just do just enough to get by. So you're over here trying to read and make sure they don't clock you when you're the one who's going to teach them. I need you to make peace with, in your dissertation, you are most likely teaching your committee. You are going to be the one teaching your chair, whatever the method or the topic is. Their job, your committee, your chair, their job is to guide you on how to conduct research in general. But when it comes to content, that's you, homie. That ain't them. That's you. So please stop writing for them because they don't know. And I remember 2 or 3 years ago, I was coaching a student who had the Kimberly Crenshaw on her committee. And I said, hey, you getting caught up in the name. I told her, first of all, Kimberly Crenshaw is a lawyer, legal. You are in education. Y'all already in 2 different fields. Number 2, while she may have coined a term, how we have adopted it in education is completely different in the way she originally intended it. I'm not saying she won't be able to help you. I'm saying this is apples and oranges. But if you keep getting caught up in the name, you're going to miss an opportunity to be able to give her a different perspective. When you are writing, this is for everyone, especially if you're going to be faculty or someone who's going to consistently publish. When you put out new ideas into the world, you relinquish control. I'm back. All right. So when you put ideas out there, you relinquish control, meaning you can't control how other people are going to understand your work or how they're going to use it or how they're going to expand it or how they're going to involve it. So yeah, she did put out that original article in the early 90s or whatever. But this is when I was talking to the students, I'm like, this is 2021. Do you realize how much intersectionality has changed and grown and shifted? So yeah, you have to be able to speak back to her on your committee because she's learning from you in the same way that you're learning from her. So I hope that example is helpful. Okay, thank you. This was helpful to understand, starting wide and narrowing down the focus. Okay, I think I'm stuck on the aspect of super technical jargon. I'm all about disseminating info to the reading in a matter they can understand, but I do have to talk or write very technically. So are you speaking to... Tell me more about when you talking about technically. Are you saying how you talk about all the research? You're research so-and-so and so-and-so found this, but this person and this person found this. Are you talking about that in technical? Are you talking about the technical pieces related to the content or a certain theory or a framework that you need to explain? So tell me more. What I will say in general, I am someone who says, number one, every paragraph only needs to focus on one main idea. I know that sounds very well, duh, girl. But the way y'all be writing, y'all be having 20 billion ideas in one paragraph. Right? So if I go back to intersectionality, the first paragraph needs to be, what is intersectionality? Give a definition. Give an example. And then talk about why intersectionality matters overall to this study. Then next, whatever else part of the framework, right? But tell me more information. My supervisor said Blackness wasn't being brought out in my analysis enough, even though my questions aren't about Blackness explicitly. Tell me more about your topic, Julian. Please remind me of your topic. Would it be important to continue to assess help-seeking behavior patterns of older African American underdiagnosis treatment outcomes for treatment engagement? So in what ways, or maybe my word is, what areas do you want to focus on in terms of what the help-seeking behavior? So is it a particular type of treatment or diagnosis? Is it a particular type of help-seeking behavior you want to focus on? Because they never tell me more about where to go. Okay, love the vintage Dr. Listen, okay, Danielle, it's been a very long time, I feel like, since I've been on Instagram. Y'all, the way this anxiety has been acting, I couldn't. I do miss y'all. Like, I do miss just having these conversations and answering questions. And I'm just so happy my coaches have been helping me. Okay, they're like, girl, do this. In the same way I come on here and I tell y'all, they were like, wear your journal. I'm like, I want to do that journaling. See, I am panicked. She's like, okay, but do your journaling. Okay, as a journalist, I detest academic writing. Academic writing, y'all, it's so simple that if you are smart, it is so hard for you. Because academic writing is tell them what you're going to tell them what you told them. That means it's going to be very repetitive, simple, and boring. We don't care about your fluffy, nice words unless you're in a nice field like anthropology or like women gender studies, because they use all the words, or like English or history or something. Okay, they use all the words. If you're somewhere like education, STEM, we don't want all your words. We just need to know the simple basics of it. You save that for the manuscript that you're going to publish on your own. Because here's my view of it. Stop giving these people your good intellectual property. Y'all, I'm about to go on a rant and I swear I'm going to come back. This is not your dissertation. It's not meant to be for the ancestors. Okay, it ain't meant to be for your grandma and your mama and them. I know you're like, but this is important. I want to make sure I do it for everybody. What you are doing is giving that good old oppressive institution your good intellectual property for them to use and do with whatever they want to. Think about that. You are giving them intellectual property that they get to choose what they want to. They own it. You don't own it. They own it. If you want to do something meaningful for the people, for the culture, do it after you are doctor so that you can own it. Okay? Because a lot of y'all doing research around how you like burn the system down, but yet you're feeding the system. The dissertation is an educational exercise meant to teach you how to design, conduct, and evaluate research. That's it. This ain't for your mom and them. This ain't for the ancestors. You do that afterwards when you own it. All right? Okay. The effects of meeting medical necessity for older. So then a lot of your, okay, so I'm getting out of my wheelhouse. So I'm going to just talk in general. A lot of this then needs to be, what does meeting medical necessity means? Like, how will we know when we saw it? Like, what are the indicators of that? So let me go back to your original, the other question. Would it be important to continue? Oh, you're saying this is thing. Okay. In order to like lead us, like for the reader, right? If the reader is brand new and you need them, the end point where you need them to be is it important to continue to assess it? Then we first need to be able to break that down. So, what do you already know? Because it sounds like you are in this world, right? You probably have practical experience as well as research experience. A question I like to ask is, what is it that you wish people knew? That if they knew, they would stop acting ridiculous at conferences or in manuscripts or in papers. Like, what is it that you wish people knew? What is it that you wish people would stop saying when it came to older African American men? What is it that you wish people would talk more about? These are all clues to what you need to include in your literature review to justify or to help that reader get to the end result of asking themselves, should we still be doing this? Let me know if that makes sense. I'm literally running an impromptu Write With Us, the folks that wanted to keep going, and I'm using the time to plan while you are yelling at me. I need to do my plan and tell everybody, hey, I was trying to get to the call, but I made it to Nashville too late. Listen, that's it. That's all. My supervisors are 2 white British men, by the way. My project is about Black American men's dress and consumption simply as Black men, not necessarily the role that race plays. Okay, friend, you hear what you just said? Let's read it again. My supervisors are 2 white British men. Okay, I'm not saying hashtag not all, but in general, If you put black anywhere in the title, where does my intention go? If in my world, remember, I'm speaking very generally, y'all. If in my world, I most likely do not interact with black men, I most likely did not grow up regularly consuming content with black men, and maybe a sport, soccer game or something. But beyond that, it hasn't been in my world. So anytime someone is talking about black men, that's all I can focus on. I can't focus on dress and consumption because you put black men in there. Now, if you said the topic of the role that what did you say? If you said men's dress and consumption, and you only selected black men as participants, right? That's a different thing. Then my intention is not going to be there in the beginning because you just said men, but because you said black men, right? You got to know your audience, y'all. Y'all got to know your audience. Who your committee? Who's your chair? Who's most likely going to read this? Who most likely in the university, in the field? Who are the experts? This is why I love who the crusty old white man. What would he say about the literature? The reason why I use that prompt is because while we are making a lot of progress and strides, right? Like, we still outnumbered in this thing. Okay, the people who are doing research are who? Cishet white men. I get that we're changing, but whose research get privileged, published, and talked about the most? In general, then, that is who you're writing for, that reader who's most likely coming from that background, who has never heard of this before. So before I can even wrap my head around consumption and dress, I need to know why we're talking about black men. Why are we separating? Why are you making it a race thing, Julian? Like, why you gotta be so political with this? That's the question. It's like, why are you being so political? Why can't you just talk about men? Why does it matter about the race? Well, since you brought the race in, you need to explain. Most of your literature review needs to justify why you're talking about black men. You hear why I'm using the language that a literature review is about justification? Because if the reader is brand new, and we're going to assume then, if the reader is brand new, they are steeped in what is considered normal in our society. So they're going to come in with that view. And it is your job then to help them understand why we need to consider black men's dress and consumption, and not focus on the role that they're black, but focus more on the cultural aspects and how that influences dress and consumption, right? How someone's background, whether they are black or not, how does those factors influence what they choose to, how they choose to style themselves, what they choose to purchase, the type of media they choose to consume, and how that influences. You are making that very plain. It feels like it should be like, well, duh, shouldn't they know that where you come from and the media you consume influences your decisions? Why would they know that? You know that because that's your experience, but why would they know it? When they are like two white men, British men, like what their worldview has been considered normal from the beginning. So why would they think about other people who that worldview wouldn't be normal for? It never will occur to them. It's not that most people are not being malicious, y'all. Most people are like, oh, I just never thought about it. And we can make all sorts of critiques about what they should have thought about, or they should know this, but that doesn't change the fact that it never entered their brain to consider the role that race and culture plays on how we dress and how we consume. So let me know if that makes sense. Emphasis on shared intellectual property. This is really part of why I've gone back and forth so much on methods, right? So like, Kristen, when you're thinking about your study, the reason why I was pushing you first towards doing a survey or, and I know you want to do autoethnography, but to keep it general, and this is for everyone, the reason why I like strongly encourage you to keep things general when you write the dissertation is because of the thing I was just saying to Julian. People can't meet you where you are. You all the way, and let me make sure everybody's on the same page. We're talking about, for all intents and purposes, farmers markets and how they're designed. And who has access to farmers markets, and what role if we're trying to improve food insecurity, like we're trying to reduce that, remove it, like Are we really doing that with farmers markets in the way that they're currently designed and implemented? Or are there some other things that need to happen? Is general her topic. I'm saying the majority of your people, they have never questioned the design of farmers markets. Their assumption is, well, they work. That's the beauty. That, like, if the literature is saying that is the number one suggestions of what we should do in food deserts, then most people have never questioned if they are designed properly. Most people are just like, how do we implement them? And that is frustrating because you thought, because the people sold you the story that by the time you got to the dissertation, this was going to be a more, this was going to be a deeper conversation, a more nuanced conversation. And I want you to know, and everybody else, the nuance is questioning, well, do they even work? Are they even designed properly? Right? Julian, the question, the more as nuanced as you're going to be able to get, hey, did you know like people's backgrounds influence the way they dress and consume? That's as nuanced as you're going to get. You thought you were going to be able to talk about all these other theories and these cool things that you read. They can't keep up with that. So don't worry so much about the methods. It's more about how you're writing it up. Because everyone's going to have way more data than they can actually include in a dissertation. So don't worry so much about controlling what the data is. Remember that on the end of this thing, when you're writing up the findings and the discussion, you get to control what you put in. For my dissertation, I'll give you a different example. I have a lot of data that I'm about to go back through, but I have a lot of data. I only chose to focus on 3 things: spirituality, sibling relationships, and how Black women initially, like what were the cultural components that initially helped them to think about the ways of how they define themselves. So like videos and current TV shows. There was so much that I did not include. Why? Because for the purposes of this dissertation, you only need to know those 3 things. Y'all don't have to, you won't be able to, there won't be enough room, number one, but you are not including every piece of data that you found. So if your 2 co-chairs only want to talk about Black and race, you know what you do? Let me go ahead and write this up about race. Why? Because y'all love to say, I just want to be done. I just want this over with. Yeah, you want to go back and forth with your committee. Why? If that's what they want, the way my chair was like, you can push back. No, I can't, girl. I'm ready to get done. Because this is not going to be the only thing that you write. Whether you are going to be faculty or not, it is not going to be the only thing you write. It's not the only time you're going to talk about your research. There's tons of conference proposal, poster presentations, random talks people are going to ask you. You can get on the internet. We have this beautiful thing called the internet where you could just talk about your research and you can nerd out as much as you want to. I'm about to go on another rant. You got to be honest about what you really want. So for everyone, be honest of why you want to be a doctor. And what I mean by that, especially if you catch yourself saying, I just want to be done. I just want this finished. Are you sure about that? Because let me tell you what most people do who enroll in the doctoral program. Most people go to their chair and they say, hey, chair, what should I study? And the chair says, you should study this. And they're like, okay, bet. I'm going to go study it. And they come back, they're like, okay, should I do the pink one or should I do the green one? Do the pink one, bet. Should I do this conceptual framework or this one? Do this conceptual, sounds good. You know what's not happening? There's no argument. There's no pushback. But I was thinking, they're like, oh, okay, I'll do exactly what you told me to do. That's a person who wants to be done. That's a person who just wants to graduate and be doctor. What you're doing is you're saying you want to be done and just be doctor, but you go to your chair and you're like, hey, chair, actually, I wrote you a 20-page proposal of the ideas I was thinking. And I'm going to try this cool method and I'm going to try to do this and I'm going to do this blog and then I'm going to write this book over here. And your chair is like, oh, okay, you got it. You must know what you're doing if you're coming up in here that prepared. So I don't need to help you. And so then you go and then your ADHD catch up with you. Now you're overwhelmed because you got 50 million ideas and you're trying to figure out which one works, but you don't really understand research. And then you go back to your chair and you're like, I'm trying to put this all together. And the chair's like, yeah, I think you just need to keep reading because it sounds good. And now you leave, you got an attitude because you're like, they can't really help me. The reason why they can't really help you It's because you are talking to them way above what they can understand. But you are thinking it's because they don't want to support you or they don't like you. No, they don't understand. You giving them way too much credit. They don't know what you're talking about. And because you're not talking to them at their level or from low key, a lot of them are like, since you didn't even ask me for help to even create the proposal, then I'm not about to help you to do nothing else because I don't understand it. Most of you are having a hard time writing your literature review. It's simply because either you're not asking for help enough or your chair told you to do something and you were like, I'm not doing that because I know better. I'm not saying you don't know better. I'm saying the way this process works, the way it was historically designed, because peep this, historically, when you enrolled in a doctoral program, you worked under a major professor, and whatever that person was researching is what you research. Whatever data they had access to is what you use for your dissertation. It was none of this, you get to study and do what you want to do. It was, no, you're helping them to advance their research. Now, more modern times, because of marketing, because they want more people to enroll in doctoral programs, they understood that, oh, we got to let people study what they want to, because that'll get more people into the program. But that means your chair, your supervisor, your major professor now does not have any motivation to help you. And especially if you don't include them in the formation of your topic, they really don't have any motivation. They're not getting credit for it. They don't get credit for helping you until you start getting to the end of the dissertation process. So what is in it for them? And I know you might be like, but this is their job. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not their job. Go look at their job description. Advising doc student is probably 10% or less of their time. If 10%. It's probably rolled into service, but service is really meaning like committees and whatnot. The institution does not care about doc students. It's not about making sure you have the support. You are only there to help advance the research of the current faculty so that the institution or the department or the program can get more money, get more hours, get more recognition. I'm telling you the truth because I want to help you. I want you to let go of the frustration or the expectation that everybody is an amazing educator and that they want you to win. And I'm not even saying they don't want you to win. I'm just saying they're indifferent. So unless you are helping them to help you, they have no motivation to do so. All right, let me come back. Let me get off my soapbox. All right, so let me know questions or where you're getting stuck in the literature review. Okay, it does make sense. I talked about clothes and police brutality in my recent draft, and I don't want to hear shit else. Okay, friend, now you open up a whole nother can of worms, friend. You done brought police brutality in it. Now they're real confused. They're like, now what the police got to do with it? You got to think about it like a basic person. What does the police have to do with it? Now we got more questions. So they're going to keep asking you. They're going to keep asking. So you want to think about, how could you explain, if you were going to explain to this is why I like the prompt of, if you were going to talk to a 5-year-old about it, how would you explain it to a 5-year-old, right? I most likely wouldn't talk about the police to a 5-year-old. And granted, I know we're talking like this and I don't know the nuances of your topic, but how I think my basic understanding is, I might just leave it basic of like, our identity shape, and I'm thinking you mean consumption in terms of media, so if it's not this, let me know. But I'm thinking like our identities pretty much, or our background shape the media that we consume. So as someone who is from the west side of Chicago, right, a lot of the content that I consumed was people who look like me and people who came from similar or same neighborhoods as I did, meaning lower working class backgrounds, more like your hood TV shows. So like, for example, The Wire, right? Or, to watch the Cosbys was like, ooh, like this is a treat. But like Good Times was more like, oh yeah, that's more relatable because it relates to my background and experience. And the same way that someone would make choices about that would be the same way that someone would make choices about their clothing. I don't got to talk about nobody's police, right? I don't got to talk about the deep history. Why? Because to your point, don't ask me no more questions. I'm just here to help you understand the connections. I'm not here to give you a whole history of the diaspora, you know? So let me know if that makes sense. Okay. Role identity. Hi, Dr. Bryant. Role identity performance of women's sports fandom. Lit review sections. What is identity theory? Role identity. What is role identity performance? How role identity performance is influenced by role identity salience. Is impacted by social commitment. How being a fan is a role. How socialization. How wanting... Yes. And so this is very detailed, Danielle. And I hope you're typing, because otherwise, I don't know how you're doing this so quickly. Maybe you're talking into your phone. So as you continue to because you're so detailed in your sections, and I'm doing it, I know you know this, Danielle, I'm doing this for the sake of everybody on here. You want to make sure that as you are defining like what is role identity, once you make the definition, you want to use examples, maybe 1 or 2 examples that relate back to sport teams or sport fans or women's sport fans in particular, right? Because we want to make sure that we give them a basic definition, and we want to make sure that we loop it back to the overall topic so that people can make the connection. Oh, this is why she's studying this. Oh, this is why this matters. Your literature review is to educate and justify your research, right? So everyone, let me repeat, right? When you are designing a research project, you first start with a problem, right? Like, this is the problem, or this is the gap, which is the problem. Based on this problem, in my view, your view, you as the researcher, your view of the problem, you have a particular purpose that you've outlined or a research aim that you've outlined. You may think you're being objective. I don't believe in objectivity, okay? Because who objectivity? Because we all come from different places, right? So everybody's experience, identities, culture is influencing how they interpret the literature, right? To go back to my example, if I asked you who won the beef, Kendrick or Drake, based on your understanding of hip hop, based on your understanding of those two people, based on how you like the songs or you didn't like the songs, will be how you answer that question. And that means that we can ask 50 people and we can get 50 different responses, which is why objectivity is not a thing. The same thing happens with literature. I know your committee or your chair is going to be like, be objective. Who we talking about? So that's why I'm like, what they saying is, what would the old white man say in your field about it? That is what it means to be objective. Real talk. If you can think about it from that lens, it's going to save you a lot. All right. I love how you put lit reviews in basic terms. Literature review is about justification. I'm still historicizing in chapter 1, but we'll take the lit review perspective with me. Yes, and even as you're talking about the history and the background, keep it simple, right? In the same way I was just telling Julian, we don't need to tell the people everything. What do they need to know? If you were talking to a 5-year-old, what are the core events, the core concepts from history that we need to know? Another way of saying that, what would the old white man need to know? If the old white man was saying, like, this is what we've been doing since the beginning of this field, that's what you include in the history. Okay, if you want to put a little razzle-dazzle on it, then you can add a little few, like 1 or 2 points that like give it a razzle-dazzle, but that's not the bulk of it. Unless you prepared to go back and forth, unless you got the patience and you got the energy to go back and forth with your committee, then you do that. Like me, I was being ridiculous a little bit in my literature review because I started talking about hip-hop feminism. I knew I was just going to eat at my committee, but I had the energy to go back and forth. If you are someone who's overwhelmed and you're burnt out and you're saying, I just want to be done, keep it simple, keep it basic. Okay, the 2 aims is what's really throwing me off. To be honest, it's like my brain cannot wrap my head around how it has to be 2 papers in a way that's simple. Okay, tell me again what the autoethnography part was, because I'm still stuck on the first one. So tell me what that is, Kristen. Okay, and y'all, the reason why I know more about hers is because she's in the Finish Your Dissertation Institute, and this is what we do all day long. They're so used to me going back and forth with them. And we'll be opening up another cohort in November, in case you are wondering. Hi, Chris. Okay, I want to finish early. All right, then. Julian, here's the thing. You're going to have to, whoever your bestie is, you need a best friend. You need a safe person, okay? Because you need to go to that person and you need to say, hey, friend, I need you to do a very important job. This is really helpful for somebody who is not in higher education at all. Like if you got a real good relationship, like with your mama or something, or your favorite auntie, you're going to go to them and you're going to say, hey, I'm going to need to call you once a week. And I'm going to need to vent about some things. You don't got to say nothing back. I just need a safe place to vent. Because you are going to go talk to these two white men and you're going to be trying to explain to them. And they're going to ask you a question that's going to keep pissing you off. And you need somewhere to go to vent your frustrations. Because when you talk to them, you just need to give them back basic answers. But in order for you to continue to have the capacity to do that, you need a safe place. You need to go somewhere. You need to know that after this, I get to vent, to be like, do you know what these motherfuckers just told me? That's what you're going to need, okay? I don't know if you cuss, but like, that's what you're going to need. You need to talk to them basic because they're gonna have even more questions. Don't wait till you get into the data. Like wait till you start talking. You think they asking basic questions now? You're gonna need that place, or maybe several places. That is a lot of what we do. We'll see. But that's a lot of what we do. It's a lot of venting because you need a place to vent. Yeah, we get work done and you do right. But you also need a place to be like, can you believe? We're gonna be like, yeah, I know it's wild, right? You got 1 year left. You got to save your energy for this year. Okay, I was closing out the Write With Us, so I missed that last part. I think the gist was to include examples that bring us back. Yes, that's what it was. It was my way to shift the conversation forward around the design of farmers markets using my lived experience as a practitioner. Okay, I'm thinking. So the two aims, right? It's like, how do we move this forward? Number one, I think one of the aims needs to be around how do we as a field and as one in scholarship and in practice, because I'm thinking those are different. How do you define accessibility, inclusivity in general? How do you define those things? And how do farmers markets like even relate to those definitions? And I think another aim is, here is my personal experience as a scholar practitioner in farmers markets, right? So one is about your experience. The other is about in general as a field, this is how we define these things. And then you problematizing the definition that as a field you have adopted generally, right? And that is where, so that could be more of like a conceptual paper where you are poking holes to be like, I get that we keep saying farmers markets is going to fix, food insecurity, but here are all the reasons, or 3 to 5 reasons why that's not about to happen. And that it's probably doing more of like a systematic literature review where you're saying, or even a content analysis. I know I was going there earlier, but like a content analysis of saying, based on, I'm using this as a random example, based on the last 50 articles that have been published around farmers markets and their connection to accessibility and inclusivity, here's what we have learned from the literature. But here's what the literature has not considered, has not questioned, and here's what we don't know. Which then leads us into your second paper, which is talking about your experience of, you learned that same thing, and in practice, you were like, this ain't working. And here are all the reasons why it's not working. What about a family under this circumstances? What about this? It reminds me of when I worked in this farmer's market and we were doing XYZ. Right, so one is talking about the literature overall, and the other one is like, but this is my personal experience. Those are two different papers. They just feel very similar, right? This goes back to, you are very smart. You have a deep knowledge and understanding of this. Your reader does not. Your committee does not. And it's only when you present this idea to them and you present these questions to them, they're gonna be like, oh, duh, that makes sense. But they are not regularly every day thinking about it in the ways that you are. So research for all of you, like the dissertation and the research is going to feel like, it should feel like, oh, duh. Because that shows how much of an expert you already are because you've been in the literature, but your chair or your reader they haven't thought about it. Once you pose it to them, it's like, oh, that makes sense. But they're not spending there every day. It's not conscious awareness to them. And that is what you're doing in research. We originally talked about showing scholarship that is not working, how we think it is with a possible survey. And that's why I was going with the survey, to show that we ask like people on the ground what they're doing and they don't know, because that's what was going to come back. It ain't clear. So we got work to do. And then you're going to show, and this is how I make it clear in my work. So you can do it the survey route, or you can do more like the conceptual route. But I'm getting closer to being done, so I'm fine with the interviews of some kind that can be robust enough for 2 papers. Yeah, they don't know. Y'all really, some of you are not going to believe me until you hear the words, congratulations, doctors, and you're pissed. The reason why you're going to get pissed off at your final defense is because you're going to realize they didn't ask me 90% of the questions I thought they were going to ask me. Why? Because they don't know. You're going to make it mean that they let you off easy, that they're just pushing you through. They don't know. You are smart. You've been doing this for so long. If you can believe me a little bit that you might know more than them, it will help you greatly to write this literature review. Greatly help you to write your dissertation. The people don't know, y'all. They don't know. Okay, so let me know if anything that your challenges or questions around literature review, or if you want to put your topic in and let me know, and we can talk about it. You want to come up? We can do that too. I'm going to tell you. So the Write Your Literature Review Retreat, it is Friday, October 11th to Sunday, October 13th. You can either join me in Atlanta, Georgia, or you can join me virtually. Either way, friend, you're going to show up on day 1 with a clear outline and your articles already read, right? Because we're going to have a pre-meeting, okay, the week before. I think the 4th. Yes, the 4th, that Friday before, we're going to have a pre-meeting. I'm going to tell you what to do. So on the 11th, you're going to show up with a shitty outline and your stuff read. On Friday, I'm going to be like, now let's take this outline and make it for real. Because when I give you an outline and a plan, I want it to feel like a grocery list. Where, you go to the grocery store and you're like, I got to get this, I got to get this. Like, you can check items off very easily. That's what we're going to spend day 1 doing. Making sure your plan is clear and set. Because you most likely will leave Friday and be already motivated to write. But just in case you go to sleep or you go out because you grown, on Saturday, we are going to write the entire literature review draft. I know you like, girl, what? Yes, you're going to write the entire literature review draft. Day 3, I am going to show you how to incorporate in the literature and how to format it so that you can prepare it for the following week for us to review it. Because we are going to be there, me and team members. Dr. Kalia, I will be there with me, as well as some other team members. We're going to be right there being like, you should change this. In the same way I'm sitting here with you, going through your topic and helping you to outline and getting it narrowed, we're going to be right there. When you try to get up because your ADHD is telling you need to go play some R&B music and dance in the corner, we're going to be like, what you doing? Come sit right here. We have a guided process because y'all love to go to these writing retreats that got nothing but open space. And if you couldn't get yourself to focus and get organized by yourself, why did you think going into a space with other people and other noises and other sounds and other smells was going to help you to focus? No, so we're going to take you through a guided process and make sure you put the words on the page and that you know how to format it and that you know how to present it using your study. Because the goal is, before Halloween comes, you have submitted that literature review and you got the first round of feedback from your chair. The reason why I'm saying the first round is because your chair has a clear way that they want your literature review to look. But they cannot articulate that to you right now. Why? Because most people struggle with articulating their expectations. They think about it. Most people take months to write their syllabi. So when you go to courses, they have spent months reading and thinking about your assignments and talking with their friends about how they want you to write this assignment. Most people don't take that amount of time and effort and energy for your personal dissertation. So they have an idea of what they want a literature review to look like, but they can't tell you that until you give them a clean, polished, finished version of a literature review. So what we're going to do is to help you get a clean, polished, finished version of a literature review so that you can give it to your chair and your chair's going to say, oh, I thought you were going to do it this way. You're going to do it that way. What you're not going to do, you're not going to get mad. You're not going to have the attitude when they do that. Why? Because I just told you, and I will tell you over your 3 days, they did not know how to articulate their expectations until you gave it to them. So it's not wasted work. It's not that you're wasting your time. It's not that you don't know what you're doing. They don't know how to articulate their needs and their expectations. So we're going to help them to help you. So over these 3 days, you are going to present them a literature review that they can tell you clearly, oh, this is what I would like. And so most of our students who go through this process, when they submit that literature review, most of the time their chair is like, oh, you just got some minor edits, or I just want you to add this one section, and then they are approved and they're ready to go. There are some people who are like, oh, that's good. Okay, we'll come back to it. Why? Because you're going to have to rewrite this literature review anyway. When you collect your data and you want to talk about the findings and discussion, the discussion section is a conversation between you, the literature, and the data. There is no way for you to write a final literature review without having the data. Especially for those of you in programs where you have to write the full 3 chapters out before you defend the proposal, there is no way for you to have a final literature review because you don't have the data yet. The data drives the literature. So the reason why you're going to have to rewrite the literature review anyway is because once you get the data and you figure out, okay, here are my key findings, now you know exactly what literature you need in order to have a conversation or a discussion between you, the literature, and the data. So our job at this retreat is to get you to a place where you can say, hey, chair, here's where I'm going. I'm 80-90% done. I just need you to tell me the 10 or 20% you would like to see so we can move on and we can defend the proposal. Let me know if you have questions. Okay. Baby, this conversation has done my soul good. I sat on the defense and was gagged. Listen, you can come into the group. Okay, because I'm trying to be cute and professional. This is me being cute and professional. From a time perspective of interviews or content analysis, either is faster. I think the interviews would be better. I think I would have a hard time finding the info in the literature because we are not clear as a field. And you could do in a way, you're going to do a combination of both anyway. But what I would say is the interviews, okay, I'm thinking about your field. They probably don't want you to do 10 to 15. I know you're worried about the logistics of it, but I promise you, with your connections, you're going to be able to find the 10 to 15 people that you need, right? Because we don't need to find the best of the best of these highly credentialed people. No, we need think about the neighborhoods you want to study. We need regular schmegular people who gonna tell it to us real. I don't know why y'all got this fancy green and y'all trying to do it at the institution. I think about the farmers market at Emory University. I'm like, who is coming to this? What? And who? Upper middle class people are coming to this farmers market because this can't be for other people. It can't be for working class. Look, first of all, I don't even know how they're going to get here. Second of all, I don't even know how they're going to navigate the campus to even find the farmers market. And it can't be for the students because this stuff costs too much. Can't be. Right? So you need regular schmegular people who going to tell it to you like that. Right? So that you can then have a conversation with the researchers and the practitioners who love to sit in rooms and with their privilege and just theorize and talk about food insecurity. You need to be able to talk to them with real examples and information and be like, that's cute that y'all having this conversation over here, but over here that ain't working. I have to write chapters 1 through 3 for proposal, then get permission for the study, then defend. Yeah, right? So that is why we want to write a real basic literature review. Why? So your chair can tell you, this is what I was thinking. And if you were here with me earlier when I said, they don't know what you know. So what they're looking for, their expectations is not going to be so much about, well, you didn't talk about this and you didn't talk about that in terms of these things you've never heard of. It's more likely going to be, you didn't talk about this old white guy over here. You didn't talk about this theory that we've been using for 50 years. Your brain and your voice is going to say, the reason why I didn't talk about it, because that's not applicable. I can't say that word. That does not apply to my study, right? But they're going to be like, but that's what we talk about in this field. So yeah, I would say you interview the people who work. I would argue that you interview the people who work on the ground in the farmers market, who are organizing it, right? Because here's my assumption I'm making, that the person who's designing it does not have anything to do, or doesn't have much to do with the day-to-day operations of it. Where you're going to find the information you're looking for is the day-to-day operations of the farmers market, right? Because I may have an idea. So let me give you an example. When I first started, I'll take the literature review. When I first started talking about literature reviews, right, it was a 2-hour workshop. And I was like, clearly people only need 2 hours. I'm going to talk about it. That's how I designed it. But as I started to do the workshop, I was like, yes, helpful, but people would be more, it would be easier for them if they had more time with me. So then it wasn't until the data of me doing that workshop for like 10 or 15 times that I was like, we probably should make it a 30-day challenge, right? So then I made it a 30-day challenge. And then based on that 30-day challenge, I was like, okay, this is giving them more time, but people are stopping at day 14 or 15 because their fears and their overwhelm is getting the best of them. So then now my brain decided we're going to do this 3 days where I'm going to be sitting there in front of their face and I'm going to guide them through each step, right? And then I'm going to get some more information. Most likely, though, when I think about community interventions and social interventions, the people who are designing it, maybe they're there for the first week or month, but as things get more normalized and things have been happening for months or years, it starts to change and grow. And then it becomes more glaring, the accessibility issues. But the people who design it may not know that. The field of public health are the designers. We are the problem. Organizers are implementing what we, right? But you need to show that. They don't think, right? Because if they are the designers, they have privilege, meaning with privilege, I don't have to consider other people's opinions, or it does not come easily to me to consider what their experience might be. I just know I did a great thing. I'm patting myself on the back. Look at me. I started this farmer's market. Am I great? And I'm going to get my little award and the key to the city and whatever else comes with that privilege. I'm not thinking about the single mama on the corner with 2 kids who get off at 5, but the farmer's market closes at 5:15, and she's trying to hustle and bustle down the street to get the last bits of groceries that are left, and then still get her kids to help her carry it back home, and she exhausted. But if she had a wagon, which the person who locks up at the end of the day, they know this, and they like, man, if she had a wagon, it'd probably be more helpful. But the designer doesn't know that, right? So, okay. Okay. I'm not seeing anything else, but I just want to, let me see. I'm trying to think of any other questions. The biggest thing that I can assume is that a lot of people are thinking that they cannot write a literature review in 3 days because you've been trying to write it for months. You haven't written it with structure. You haven't had someone to be like, this is what your outline should look like. This is how you actually read the literature, and then this is how you translate it and synthesize it into a literature review that not only your chair and committee will understand, but that the reader will understand. This is how you edit and move things around. This is how you prepare for feedback. This is how you incorporate feedback. I have so many examples of folks. I'm thinking about, Elizabeth is one of my favorite stories because the reason why she did not want to work with me, she had been following me for at least, I think, a year. And she finally had to start working with me because she got her feedback from her written preliminary exams, and her chair said, your literature review it barely meets our expectations. And unless you rewrite it and do it over, we're going to fail you. So I remember we had 3 days, and I got on Zoom with her and I said, oh, you're talking too much about the critical stuff. You need to go back to what the old white man would say. And you need to design it in this way, and this is how you write it, and these are the type of sentences you want to include, and this is what your chair is looking for. Elizabeth went home that night and the next day, and she rewrote the literature review, and she submitted it, and she not only did they pass her for that exam, but they were like, we're gonna go ahead and roll into your proposal defense because you got it. You think that people are trying to test your knowledge? No, it's really about how you're presenting the information, how you're writing it, and how you're justifying your study. Most of you are simply not justifying your study enough. Thanks for this conversation. How will I know that I've gathered enough literature for my review? Now, certain programs, let me take a sip, hold on. So certain programs, mostly for-profit institutions, what they do, I'm going to just say a good job in this way, where they'll say, I'm expecting X amount of citations. On average, what I've seen across programs and discipline is that people are looking for anywhere from 30 to 50 citations. Those of you having pissing matches with your cohort and your friends talk about, well, I read 100 articles and I read 100 books. Okay, good for you. But all of that probably don't need to be included, and you probably don't have a reason of why you included all of that. I would say a good starting point is 30 to 50, right? Because if we go back to what I was saying, is that your chair is going to give you feedback and the data is going to drive what other citations you may need. But 30 to 50 will give you a good idea of what the literature is saying and have enough citations to justify the research. The other part I want to say is, what are the key topics, concepts, theories, and frameworks that we need to know in order to understand why you are doing your particular topic in your particular way? Because that's also going to drive what the literature is that we need. Like for me, I had more because I was talking a lot about theory. I was talking about a lot about developmental theory. And in student affairs, okay, we love to steal a developmental theory from another field. Okay, so I had to include all of those. That was like the bulk of my citations, but that makes sense because I was talking about identity development. It's going to go back to, what is your topic? How complex is your topic? And how much do you need to break down or explain or teach the reader for them to understand and be on your side as to why you need to do your study? So I hope that that helps. And let me know if you have any follow-up questions. Okay. Are there other opportunities in 2024? Oh, for the literature review, I'm thinking about doing one in December. So we typically in December, like the 26th, 27th, 28th, we usually have the Write Your Dissertation event, but I think that it is too broad. So I was thinking about doing another literature review, or either the final chapters of the dissertation, because there's a lot of people writing their findings and discussions. But also there's going to be a new cohort of the Finish Your Dissertation Institute in November. And so y'all know, and just for everyone, that is our flagship program. It is a 12-month commitment. And in there we use a platform called Circle. And in there's a feature called Ask a Coach. So like Kristen comes in and puts, like, she literally is like, I don't know where to start. Here's what I'm thinking about my topic. And 2 weeks ago, I was like, this is where you start. First, you're going to write a paragraph about this. You're going to write a paragraph about that. You're going to write a paragraph about that. And you're going to turn it back into me a week later. She gave it to me a week later. I edited it. I gave her some more questions, gave it back to her. And now we're doing that back and forth. So Finish Your Dissertation is a more like intimate experience, because it's either me or other coaches who are like, we're going to help you step by step to be able to do this. There are going to be some Finish Your Dissertation students who join the literature review retreat, but that's mainly because they want a concentrated time. They like the concentrated 3 days to get it done, knowing that it's going to be focused on the literature review. But if it's something more of like, you want to take your time, or you want to write this entire dissertation in like 12 months, you want to take the year, FID is going to be your best bet. Okay. Okay, if you get more capacity, you'll do it early. And here's the thing, the way I'm guiding you through your current proposal, you're going to have a lot of your literature review outlined. That's how my brain thinks as I'm giving you these questions every week. It is talking about the background of the problem, because like I rearranged it for you. But that background section that you have is probably a good like 30 to 50% of your literature review. You're gonna add in more details. So I hope that helps. Hey Heather, how are you? Okay. I want to talk about the shame and the guilt that you're probably feeling. Many of you feel like, or at least I hear, why should I pay for someone to help me with my literature review when I should know how to write it? I wrote a literature review before in my classes. I got my chair. Why should I pay you money to teach me something that I should already know how to do? My flippant answer to that is, how is that going for you? I get that you feel like you should know how to do it, but if you don't know how to do it, shaming yourself is not going to make you know something. You're not going to magically know it just because you told yourself you should know how to do it. Now, there's another piece here where you might be like me, where you haven't had help before. You're not used to being able to rely on people for help. And anytime that you did ask for help, it either did not work or they scammed you. So I get that. That's real, because we're having a real conversation. But I want to go back to, if you are saying to yourself, I just want to get done, I just want to get this over with, how can you do that if you don't know what you're doing? You most likely was like, okay, well, I do know that in classes they teach us to read, and then I just need to read these articles and then I can write. You've been reading for months. You've been reading for years, and yet you're still no clearer on how to write the literature review. Because most likely when you go to sit down and you're looking at that screen, you may have 1 or 2 sentences. Maybe you gotta, like, I remember I had 4 paragraphs for the longest. For 8 months, 9 months, I could not get past 4 paragraphs. It had nothing to do with that I didn't read enough. My chair knew I knew the literature. I could not get myself to write. Because when I would sit down, and most likely when you're sitting down, you're like, but what if they don't like it? But what if I say this wrong? What if I didn't understand the literature the way I thought I understood it? Last time I turned something in, they said I couldn't write. Like, I dead ass had the program director tell me I was a horrible writer and that I shouldn't be in the program. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? Like, not me, a student, which I never struggled in school. And now you sit up here telling me I can't write. Didn't you accept me into the program with a writing sample? They're like, yeah, you can't write. And they're like, have you ever heard of the thing called the Writing Center? I'm like, yeah, I go there every week. I can show you my appointments. They're like, yeah, this ain't working. And what I know now, and what I want to tell you, when they say you're struggling with the writing or it's not clear or you're worried that people are not going to be able to understand it, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's because academic writing is a different skill set than most likely you were using in your coursework, most likely you're using your master's program, your undergrad, in high school. When you are writing for scholarship, for publication, for your dissertation, that's a whole different way of writing than you're used to. So you're trying to force yourself to use the skills and the strategies that you have from before to do something completely new. And because it's not working, because it's new, because it's uncomfortable, because it's new, you are mistakenly thinking that means there's something wrong with you. And here's how you know that you are making it means there's something wrong with you. If you find yourself saying things like, well, I just got to get together. Like, no, Dr. Lakes, like, it was really like, if I would just come home and write when I said I was going to write, if I would just sit down and be consistent, then I know I could finish it. More time is not the answer. I know that sounds logical in your mind that if you have more time, you could work on it. But I want you to reflect on the past month or the past 2 months. I'll even give you the past year. How much time have you actually sat down to write the literature review? And how much do you have on the page? I need you to understand that the belief that you have that it takes time to write is a false one. Because I wrote a whole, 30,000 word book in 10 hours. It's not about the time. It is most likely you may not understand clearly what academic writing means for publication, number one. Number two, you may not be detailed enough or clear enough on actually what your topic is and why you're doing the study. And number three, you most likely are thinking at such a high level when the literature review needs to be at the one-on-one level. And it is very challenging for you to do that by yourself. If you go talk to your faculty, if you go talk to your favorite researcher, they will tell you, oh, I got my homegirl. My homegirl is my thought partner. Oh, I go to this writing group and together we figure out how to write. The most seasoned writer is not doing this alone. They have a community. They have a team of people who are saying like, that's not clear, or you should do it this way, or have you tried it this way? The reason why I'm telling you all of this is because you might be feeling guilty or shaming yourself for needing help, but everyone needs help. No one is writing in a silo. No one is over here like, I could do this by myself. No, I didn't even do it by myself. I had my homegirl Joan together. I was like, I think you should write about this. And she was like, you should write about this. And we're trading papers. I went to other writing groups. I went to my chair. The shittiest drafts that I gave my chair. Dr. Linda was like, okay, girl, I'm going to read this. I don't even know what you're talking about. But I was willing to go through multiple rounds of feedback. Why? Because writing requires you to have help. And if you are going to your chair and y'all are not seeing eye to eye, if you're like Julian and they don't even understand your topic, they can't even help you. They don't even understand the topic. How are they supposed to help you? And like I said earlier, it's not their job to help you. Their job is to say, yay or nay, you can move forward. That's it. They assume that you know how to write a literature review. They expect, well, you're my student, so of course you know how to write a literature review. How are you supposed to know a thing that nobody taught you? I don't care if it was assigned to you in the class. Most likely, ain't nobody talked to you. And nobody sat down and be like, this is perfect. So I'm most likely nobody has sat you down and be like, this is the purpose of a literature review. This is how you outline a literature review. This is how you write. This is how you synthesize the literature. Most likely ain't nobody did that. Number two, there are multiple schools of thoughts of what a literature review should look like. If your chair is more old school, they want you to do more of like, well, so-and-so said this and so-and-so said that. But if you got a more like younger, more recent doctor chair, they like, we don't care about none of that. We care about the most important literature. But the only way that you're going to know where your chair lands is that you have to give them a solid literature review for them to give you feedback on. Because they're not going to be able to articulate to you initially. Most people, especially if you are like one of their first advisees, they're not going to be able to tell you. Why? Because they barely just passed their dissertation. Just because somebody wrote a dissertation and defended it doesn't mean they have the skill set to be able to teach and advise somebody on how to do theirs. As someone who's helped over 300 students, listen, I got practice. I got reps. My only job is to help students write their dissertations. That means that's all I focus on for 60, 70 hours a week. I'm like, this is how you write your dissertation. So that is why I can articulate for you. This is why in this retreat, I'm going to give you the structure. I'm going to give you a plan of action, like a syllabus. And I'm going to be sitting there with you like, write this. You want to say it this way. And the way I was going back and forth with Kristen, if you just heard me, I'm going to be doing that with you. We're keeping it small for that reason. Because I want to make sure that you understand not only what it is that you're writing, but why you are writing it in the way that you are. And I want to make sure that you are physically and emotionally prepared that when you turn over your draft to your chair, you're not even swayed by their feedback. You're not thrown off. Your feelings not hurt. You're not making it mean that you should get kicked out the program or you don't got no imposter syndrome. No, you're going to know exactly what they're going to say. You're going to be prepared for it. Right? It's making me think of, and y'all probably heard me talk about Camille a lot. Camille was having a hard time. I'm going to tell her story. Like, before she started working with me, she wrote, I think she said like 3 or 4 literature reviews. And my friend writes, okay, these weren't skimpy literature reviews. These are like 30, 40 page literature reviews. And she would give it to her chair, and her poor, sweet chair. Like, he was probably one of the most supportive faculty. He looked at it. At one point, I remember looking at his comments, and it said, Camille, I just really want to understand what you're saying, but I don't know what you're talking about in this literature review. And she was so frustrated because she's like, I rewrote this 4 times. What does he mean that he doesn't know what I'm talking about? And I was like, because you wrote it for a person who already understands your topic. He don't understand your topic, friend. He don't understand it. And so we sat down and we made an outline. And I told her, go write about this. And we have to talk through, I'm asking you to rewrite it for a 5th time. But this time, you have a process. So she went and rewrote it. And I was like, okay, we're going to edit it together. We're going to go through and see where the places that he may be confused, what he may not know. Meaning the reader, if they were starting from 0. Because her chair is a quantitative person through and through. She was writing a qualitative project. His topic, his research agenda ain't got nothing to do with Black women in HR. They coming from different worlds. So I was like, he's perfect. We're going to write for him to understand. So we did that. When she turned it into him, the feedback on the side was like, oh my God, this is so much better. Thank you so much. Where was this? How did you do this? And he was like, yeah, I just need you to do this and do this and do that. 2 or 3 rounds of feedback, moving on. Y'all, it's simply Most of you just need a plan that you can actually follow, and you need to understand the process of a literature review. In 3 days, it's going to be done. In 3 days, you're going to be prepared to talk to manage up to your chair to be like, okay, here's what I got for you as a literature review. Here are the parts I want you to pay special attention to. Here's what I expect to see in your feedback. And you're going to be able to submit that email in a very respectful, in a very confident way. And your chair is going to give you so much feedback. Why? Because you help them to help you. Most of you keep being like, can you just look at this for me? What am I looking at? What do you want? You ain't even read this. I could tell you ain't read it. It's not like AI wrote half of it and the other half, I don't even know if you did spell check. That's how most of you are turning in your drafts, and you expect people to give you quality feedback. It'll make no sense. But it's because you're so overwhelmed. It's because you're tired. It's because you've been trying to write this literature review. You're so sick of looking at articles. And it's because you keep trying to do this by yourself. And doing this alone is costing you way more time and way more money than what I'm asking you to invest in yourself. I'm asking you to invest in a 3-day weekend so that you can not only get done with this literature review, but you can move on to the other parts, because the process that you are going to learn, you can apply it to the rest of the dissertation. I am someone who wants to teach you how to fish. I do not want you to be dependent on me. I want you to know that you have a process for now and for later. You can go ask anyone who's been in this program, do they still use the strategies I taught them? Yes. We actually have people come back after their whole doctors. They still come to the calls. Why? Because it's the same strategies and it's helpful and the community is there. Okay, let me go see what these comments are saying because I don't have on my glasses. Okay. This is the best process I've had since I've started writing. Thank you, Heather. Heather is a FYD student, finished her dissertation, strong wisdom. Thank you, Dr. Sebastian. I think my biggest struggle was staying neutral while in the thick of the struggle. Listen, that's why we need our safe reviewers. So one of the parts that I ask students to do is identify people who they consider safe. What I mean by safe is think about your friends, think about maybe cohort members you might be really close to, think about people who have gone on to graduate that you have a close relationship with. But a safe reviewer is someone who can give you feedback on your writing, but you know that when they give you feedback, that is coming from a place of love, of care, that they have, that they're on your side. Many of you do not believe that your chair is on your side. You probably got some real reasons, right? We can get into your stories, but a lot of you, it's intimidating to give your writing, especially your rough drafts, to your chair. And so you need a safe reviewer that you can give it to, that you feel more comfortable and more safe to be like, this is real shitty, okay? But I just need to know if this is making sense. And when they give you feedback, you can trust that it's like, okay, they're looking out for me. They're not trying to bash me. They're not trying to tear me apart. They're trying to help me. Because that is going to motivate you to show up and give your work to people. That is going to help you to participate in the writing process where you write something and you give it to someone to review. That is helpful. That's what we need. So that by the time you give it to your chair, you feel more confident, you feel more comfortable, and you're more prepared for the feedback that they're going to give you, knowing that you gave it to someone. Now, some of y'all take this too far. Some of y'all be sending it to your safe reviewer, your mentor, your old teacher from high school. We don't need to send it to all those people. We need 1 or 2 people to help us. Okay, because if you start, adding too many cooks in the kitchen, it's going to be confusion. 1 or 2 people. Okay. I probably went off, but that is how you say neutral, but also because it's the feedback that'll help you. The other part too is you need someone who's going to be like, you're doing too much. They can't understand that. They're not going to be able to understand that concept. Can you bring it back down to a 5-year-old level? And you might think, well, they're a doctor. They should. They know something about one topic. That's how you become a doctor. They don't know everything. So you got to help the people. Okay. My one professor was so harsh and pulled academic freedom. I'm trying to keep it cute. I'm trying to find it. Hold on. Okay, y'all, we going here because it's late. I mean, I'm on Central Time right now, but if I was at home, it'd be almost 10 o'clock. Most people who are faculty were bullied, or they were the odd one out, or they were so busy trying to prove like how good they were as a student. And because they were able to get one of the coveted academic positions, they feel like finally I have the power. And usually when people get power, they like to shit on people. And so they'll say things like, well, I'm the doctor, you're not, so I get to tell you what's right. And they got nothing to stand on. They doing a whole power trip. I'm not saying, again, hashtag not all, but a lot of people in academia, a lot of tenure track or tenured people or full associates, whomever, a lot of them finally are like, I got power and I get to take it out on people. I get to haze doctoral students. Most of you are in Greek letter organizations. You know what hazing is. Have you ever considered that the feedback your chair is giving you is hazing and not founded in actual things you need to change or update? Here's why you need to know this. And I want you to accept it, because when you know what you're up against, you can plan for it. And you cannot take it, you don't have to take it personally. Because if you're being hazed, this is a game, this is the game we're playing. Oh, okay. Now you can choose to be like, I'm not going to play the game with them, but I'm not going to take it personal. Or you can be like me, because I love to be like, oh, this is the game we're playing. I can play it too. Okay, but I also don't really have much respect for hierarchy or authority. So I'm not saying be like me, okay? I'm just saying that I think it's fun. Most of your people, you're going to have a hard time. Take a deep breath, because I'm going to say something and then you're going to be like, she can't be talking to me. I'm talking to you. So I need you to keep breathing. Breathe when I say this. I am talking to you. Yes, you. I'm talking to you. The 9 people who are here, I'm talking to you. You are very intelligent. You are able to get things done without a lot of help. People are threatened by that. Let me say it again. You are highly intelligent, highly capable, and you are able to get things done without a lot of help or resources. People are threatened by that. But they can't tell you directly that they're threatened by that. So they say things like, are you sure? Show me the citation. I don't know. What about so-and-so? But they're saying things that don't even make sense. It got you running around trying to find articles that don't exist, trying to find different theories, trying to prove to them. And really, whether they are conscious of it or not, they're threatened by you. They can't understand, how is it that you got this far without their help? How were you able to write all of this? How were you able to do all of this? How were you able to make it through these classes and exams? I know I didn't help you. I know I didn't support you like I did my other advisors. So how did you make it this far? Y'all need to realize, right? Oppression is alive and well. It just looks different in academia, right? We're not going to come out and call you a slur or like rightfully just kick you out because you are whatever. No, we're going to make the process harder. We're going to ice you out. We're not going to answer your questions. We're going to make you do the runaround. We're going to make you believe there's something wrong with you, because we're going to make you do the work for us. Meaning, if I can get you to question if what you know is true, if I can get you to question what you have experienced in your life, then you're going to talk yourself, you're going to have all these doubts, you're going to go down a rabbit hole of like shame and spiral in your imposter syndrome, and that's going to stop you from writing, which is going to stop you from making progress, which eventually is going to lead you to the conclusion that you're not cut out for this and you're going to quit on your own. And I never had to say the words to you that you should leave. Are you following? Like, please put a 1 in the chat if you are following what I'm saying. Most of you are just have the misfortune of being around people who don't want to see you win because they see you as competition. And I need you to keep breathing. And the reason why you're going to have a hard time with this is because you're like, why would they see me as competition? I'm a student. Because that's how good you are. That's how smart you are, but you don't know it yet. And they do. The defenses that I sit on, I get so pissed because I know that the student is just so happy that they passed their dissertation defense that they're going to say, yes, I'll publish with you, I'll work with you, because they're so honored that that faculty would even want to work with them. Not realizing that most of those people know that you don't know the game, and they're trying to get you to commit to it, which is why they're asking you at your dissertation defense instead of asking you a few weeks later and doing it properly and bringing you to a meeting and explaining to you the project that they had in mind and how they're going to contribute to it. They don't do that. They ask you when you're in a highly emotional state and you're still so new that you don't understand how good you are. So they ask you in your defense if you will publish with them, because they know if they can get you to commit, then they know they can ride your coattails to another publication that's going to get a lot of attention because you don't know how good you are. You don't know how dope that idea that you have for your dissertation is. So let me know. I can't even see the chat. I know this is hard to believe, but I'm telling you, if you were able to get this far without help, if you were able to get this far without even understanding the process or the purpose, imagine how much more you're going to be able to do when you do understand the process, when you do have the support and the money and the resources, when you have the research assistants and the team. Imagine how much you're going to be able to do, how much grants and funding you're going to be able to bring in. Yeah, I'm going to jump on that because I know you're going to do all the work because, right, in this oppressive system, it has taught you that you have to work, twice as hard to get half. And so since you believe that, and I know you don't got to work that hard, if I'm the seasoned faculty who know it ain't even that deep, but you believe it is, I know that I could utilize you to do my research in your research. I remember I had a client and I kept telling her, like, something's up with your chair, because she was working on her literature review. Like, when we started working together, she had already been writing that literature review for maybe like a whole year, and it was about 100 pages. And I was like, I'm not even trying to be funny. Nobody's about to read this. No one's going to read this 100-page literature review. Why are you writing a 100-page literature review? She's like, oh, my chair keeps telling me that I need to add these things. I was like, but none of this has anything to do with your topic. Why does she keep telling you that? Oh, I don't know. The more I got to know that student, I was like, your chair is writing a book. Oh, she's writing a book about your topic. Oh, when did she come up with the idea for your topic? Oh, around the time that you asked her to be your chair? Fascinating. I was like, have you ever thought that your chair is taking your idea and using your hard work for the literature for her book? No, she wouldn't do that. I said, why wouldn't she? Why wouldn't she? Because you don't think she would? Y'all, people know how to play games. Why would I tell you that I'm lying to you? Why would I tell you that I'm using you if I'm trying to use you? I'm not trying to get you to hate every faculty. I'm just trying to give you a different perspective. Not everyone is here for your best interest. This is, okay, I'm going to get off of that, but I want you to think about that tonight. I finally made it to the other side of my lit review, and I'm still using the strategies for other chapters. Yes. It didn't feel like it didn't feel like while I was in, but I see now that why my chair and Dr. Lacey gave me feedback that I received. Oh, okay, I see. Y'all, let me know, though, if you have questions. I do need to go to sleep, y'all, because I'm at a conference, and they start bright and early at 9 o'clock, and I don't understand why people want to start things at 9 o'clock for the Write Your Literature Review Retreat. We don't start until 10. Why? Because I can't even form words before 10, so I don't expect you to be writing. Day 1, if you're curious, day 1 is from 3 to 7 p.m. This is Eastern time. Day 2 is 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., and day 3 is 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So, and you will leave with a full draft. Yes, 100 pages. I don't understand these people out here who be writing these 100-page literature reviews. I'm like, your committee is not going to read it. Yes, they will. No, they won't. They won't. And I'm not even trying to be funny. Most of your committee is going to skim your proposal going into the defense. And most of them are just going to wait for you to do your presentation so they know what questions to ask. Y'all be telling them yourselves when y'all be going in and be like, oh, I didn't include this and I didn't include that. They wouldn't have known that if you ain't say nothing. Okay. Yeah, so when it is Friday, October 11th through Sunday, October 13th. You can either join us in person in Atlanta or you can join us virtually. Either way, there's going to be a team member there supporting you. We're going to make sure that you have everything that you need. There are payment plan options available. Afterpay and Klarna are available. If those don't work, just send us an email at contact@marvettelacy.com and we will help you out. Okay. All right. So type lit, you'll get the link. Otherwise, y'all, continue to let me know what your questions are, and we'll keep this conversation going for the rest of the week. I'll definitely be back tomorrow to talk more. But I appreciate you, and I understand that you gave me so much time and attention. I hope this was helpful. I hope it was worth it, and I hope to see you at the retreat, y'all. And Shaz, if you wanna, the autocorrect got you. I want to make sure you get the link. Okay. Take it without the asterisk, so that because listen, the mini chat is a little finicky. And so unless you write it exactly the way it's put, it won't send you the link. So if you write LIT again to make sure you get it, that should work. Okay, y'all. Have a good night.